There's a quiet moment when you realize you're no longer trying to escape your life. Not because everything is perfect, not because every question has been answered, but because you've stopped fighting where you are. You notice it in small ways. You wake up without the same heaviness. You move through the day with less resistance. You don't feel the need to rush into the next version of yourself. You're starting to understand that growth doesn't always look like change. Sometimes it looks like acceptance. You've spent a long time believing that if you just pushed harder, figured more out, stayed sharper, things would finally settle. But now you see it differently. Things settle when you settle. There's a new patience in you, not passive, intentional. You let situations reveal themselves instead of interrogating them. You let people show you who they are instead of filling in the gaps for them. You let your own reactions teach you something instead of judging them. That awareness creates space, and in that space, your nervous system starts to relax. You're no longer living in anticipation of something going wrong. You're present enough to notice what's actually happening. You trust yourself more than you used to, not because you're certain, but because you know you can respond. There's strength in that, quiet strength. You don't need to control outcomes. You focus on how you show up. You're learning that alignment doesn't demand perfection. It asks for honesty. Honesty about what you can give. Honesty about what you need. Honesty about what no longer fits. This phase isn't asking you to become someone new. It's asking you to stop abandoning who you already are. And that request is changing the way you move through everything. Not dramatically, not loudly, but consistently. Something is forming here. Not ready to be named yet, not ready to be finished, but real.
As this acceptance settles in, you begin to notice how much energy you were spending on resistance, not just to situations, but to yourself. You were questioning your pace, comparing your progress, judging moments of rest as delays. Now that pressure is easing. You're allowing yourself to move at a rhythm that actually fits you, not the rhythm you were taught to admire, but the one your body and mind can sustain. There's a quiet relief in that. You stop measuring your days by how much you accomplished and start noticing how present you were while doing it. You're realizing that being grounded doesn't mean being unambitious, it means being intentional. You choose where your attention goes. You choose which thoughts deserve follow-up. You choose when to engage and when to step back. That choice creates stability. You're also becoming more honest about what drains you. Certain conversations feel heavier now. Certain expectations feel unnecessary. You don't criticize them, you just recognize them. And recognition gives you options. You don't force yourself to stay where you feel diminished. You don't overextend to maintain harmony. You trust that alignment doesn't require constant self-sacrifice. There's also a new clarity around patience. You understand now that patience isn't waiting passively. It's staying connected to the present while the future organizes itself. You don't rush outcomes. You prepare yourself. That preparation isn't loud. It's internal. You're strengthening your ability to stay steady even when things are unresolved. And because of that, uncertainty doesn't feel like a threat anymore. It feels like space. Space for adjustment. Space for learning. Space for the next layer of understanding to arrive. This phase isn't asking you to decide everything. It's asking you to stay available. Available to insight, available to change, available to yourself. Something is continuing to unfold here. Not complete yet, not finished, but moving in the right direction. With this steadiness, you start to feel less pulled by urgency. Not because nothing matters, but because you've learned the difference between importance and pressure. You no longer confuse movement with progress. You've seen how rushing only creates noise, so you choose clarity over speed. There's a growing trust in your own judgment. You don't second-guess every decision. You listen, you sense, you respond. And when you're unsure, you wait. Waiting no longer feels like failure. It feels like wisdom. You're also noticing how your reactions have softened. Things that once triggered you now register as information. You observe instead of absorb. That distance isn't cold, it's healthy. You're protecting your inner state without closing yourself off. You're learning that boundaries don't separate you from others, they help you stay present with them. There's also a shift in how you handle discomfort. You don't rush to fix it, you sit with it long enough to understand what it's pointing to. Often, it's not the situation asking for change, it's your relationship to it. That insight gives you freedom. You stop trying to control outcomes. You focus on staying aligned with your values. And alignment begins to guide your choices more than fear ever did. You're realizing that peace isn't the absence of challenge, it's the confidence that you can meet challenges without losing yourself. This phase is teaching you discernment. Not everything deserves your response. Not every thought deserves your belief. You choose carefully now where to engage, where to invest, where to let things unfold on their own. That selectiveness isn't withdrawal, it's refinement. Something is becoming clearer underneath all of this. Not an answer yet, not a conclusion, just a stronger sense of direction. And that direction is quietly shaping what comes next. As this direction takes shape, you become more comfortable with simplicity. You don't need to complicate what you already understand. You trust the signals you're receiving, even when they arrive without explanation. You notice how your body responds before your thoughts do. A sense of ease, a subtle resistance, a quiet clarity. You stop ignoring those cues. They guide you better than analysis ever did. You're also becoming less attached to outcomes. Not indifferent, but flexible. You understand that some things unfold through effort and others through patience. Knowing the difference saves you energy. You no longer feel the need to keep every door open. You're selective now. You allow some opportunities to pass, not because you're afraid, but because they don't align with where you're headed. There's confidence in that choice, a calm certainty that doesn't require explanation. You're learning that saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. Your time feels more intentional, your attention more focused, your inner space less crowded. That spaciousness allows new insight to surface. You're beginning to see how past experiences connect, how challenges shaped discernment, how waiting strengthened awareness. Nothing feels wasted anymore. This phase is teaching you trust, not blind trust, but grounded trust in your ability to navigate change. You don't need everything mapped out. You just need to stay present to the next step. And right now, that's enough. Something continues to align beneath the surface. Not complete yet, not ready to close, but steady and becoming clearer with each moment.
And this is where it settles into something real. Not an answer, not a finish line, but a way of being. You're no longer asking life to hurry up. You're no longer waiting for permission to feel steady. You're no longer negotiating with parts of yourself that already know the truth. You've learned how to stay with yourself in uncertainty, in transition, in moments where nothing is resolved yet, but nothing feels wrong either. That's the shift. You move now with less tension. You listen more than you explain. You choose what stays without forcing what leaves. You understand that clarity doesn't always arrive as certainty. Sometimes it arrives as calm, as alignment, as the absence of inner resistance. You trust your pace. You trust your instincts. You trust that what's meant for you won't require urgency, self-abandonment, or constant proof. This phase didn't make you detached. It made you grounded. It didn't shrink your life. It gave it direction. From here, what comes next will meet you where you are, present, aware, and intact. You're not behind. You didn't miss anything. You needed this steadiness to hold what's ahead without losing yourself again. And now you can. Quietly, confidently, fully.